just wonder if this person has even read this book. What is up, party people? Welcome back to my channel. For those of you who have never been here before, my name is Avery, and this is a very avid reader. As you can tell, I'm back in this fun location that I was in a few videos ago, and we're doing a little sit-down video because today I am going to be reading 1-star reviews of my favorite books. I've seen a couple other people do this video before. I can't really think of one person to credit with it, but I've seen a few people do this video and I thought that it was pretty fun and, allows for a lot of saltiness, which, I'm salty most of the time. Are you? So I just thought this would be super cool, super fun, a super good time. Basically, that's it. I'm just going to read some reviews on Goodreads of some 1-star reviews that people have left for my favorite books. So most of the reviews that I'm going to be reading are books that I rated 5 stars. That's pretty much it. I hope that you enjoy, and let's just get started. Also, I just want to do a little disclaimer. I know that everyone is allowed to have their own opinions, and I'm not genuinely hating on these people, but this is just a fun video of me telling them why their opinions are actually incorrect. These are just some of my favorite books, so I'm going to be a little heated about it, but at the end of the day, it's fine. Have your own opinion. It's not my fault that it's wrong. So first I'm going to start by looking at some reviews of books that I've read very recently because I think that'll just hit different. So the first book that I'm going to read a 1-star review for is The House in the Cerulean Sea by T.J. Klune. So this is the most recent book that I've read. I just finished it a few days ago and I loved this book. Loved it. And I gave it 5 stars. It says that the average rating is 4.5 stars. So that's a very good average rating. So let's see what some bitter people who hate children said about this book. Okay, I'm having some trouble even trying to find some 1-star reviews because most of them are 4 and 5. Oh, here's one. Okay, this guy or girl says, okay, I feel totally Grinchish, but I did not like this. This was not for me. This was a story about how prejudice is bad. While very clearly a large portion of society does still need to be anviled over the head with this message, in terms of preaching to the choir fiction, this book follows the standard formula to a T. Okay, that's kind of valid. This book is very prejudice is bad. It's about how people are prejudiced against these magical children, and the magical children are actually just normal people and good kids and stuff like that. So you're not wrong about that. It is kind of a prejudice is bad type preachy book, but personally I thought that it was still okay, even though that did come up a lot. I just thought overall the characters of the story just made it worth it, even though it was kind of like that. So it's talking about the kids. It says each of the children in the orphanage has one major trait or tic and performs it over and over again quirkily. I imagine this is supposed to be lovable, but that was not the emotion it evoked in me. Okay, well, that's how kids are though. For example, Chauncey, the big blob of slime type guy, he wants to be a bellhop so much, and that's his major personality trait is wanting to be a bellhop, and it's cute. And I just feel like most of the time kids will get hooked on one thing and they become obsessed with that thing, so it does kind of become their personality trait. And eventually maybe they'll grow up and kind of move on and not be into that thing anymore. But I wouldn't say that's a reason why you wouldn't like the characters, is because they're each have a very specific thing that they're into. And I think especially in this case, each kid had something they were into because it also had to do with who they were. So for example, the little gnome girl was really into gardening because she's a gnome and that's what gnomes do. Same with Lucy, he's literally the son of the devil, so he loves destruction and all that stuff, which is hilarious. So I don't think that's a valid point. Not valid. Okay, so this next review is a 2-star review, and it says, one giant thing I didn't like, everybody is so perfect, and I mean everybody. All the kids that everybody is so afraid of are super nice, sweet, and perfect. And of course they're never annoying or badly misbehaving. Oh no, they're always adorable and fun to be around, like real kids, I don't even think that's true. And then he goes to talk about even the Antichrist. Lucy is so nice and adorable. He has nightmares, but he never hurts anyone. I would say I don't think the kids are perfect. They are constantly saying rude things out loud, both Talia and Lucy talking about wanting to kill people and bury them because that's in their nature, and Arthur is constantly telling them how to talk to people and how that is not nice and how that's not okay. Chauncey isn't perfect. He sneaks into Linus's room and touches his things. Fee, the sprite, is really kind of rude and doesn't want anything to do with Linus in the beginning. Sal is extremely shy. He's been through so much that it takes him a really long time before he even opens up to Linus. So that's just not true. The fact that they're in this orphanage, secluded from the rest of the world, obviously means that there's something not quite right about them. So that's the first thing I would disagree with. The second thing it says is that Arthur is perfect. He never loses his cool, he's never annoyed with them, never raises his voice. Okay, so that is true. He is very docile when it comes to talking to the kids, but they also respect him enough that they listen to him. I'm sure if they were to do something crazy, he would yell at them. We didn't see it in the book. But another thing about Arthur that is not perfect about him is that a big thing in the book was that he never took the children off the island, and he secluded them away for so long because he was scared to bring them into the real world, which was a very valid thing to be scared of. But that ended up kind of being a problem, and eventually it was something that he worked on, and he eventually started introducing the children into society. So he definitely wasn't perfect in that way either. The other thing I have a real problem with is saying Linus is a perfect caseworker. He's never ignorant or rude. He's always on the side of the kids and whatever. The whole point of the book is that Linus is a good caseworker, but he is detached from the children, and he tries to remain so objective that he doesn't allow feelings to help sway his decisions. And that's the main problem. That's what he ends up learning and changing, is that he learns that he needs to be able to get close to the children and actually care for them in order to be able to do right by them. Throughout the whole book, we're following Linus, and I'm just wanting to punch him in the head and be like, it's okay to care about the kids. Get over yourself. Get over your rules and regulations. Overall, I just disagree with all of this, saying all the characters are perfect, when the whole plot of the book revolves around the fact that the characters aren't perfect, and that's why everything that happens. So, not quite right. Okay, the next book / series that I'm going to do is Strange the Dreamer by Laini Taylor. So I read Strange the Dreamer and Muse of Nightmares this year, and I loved the series, loved it. So I give it 5 stars, and the average rating for it is a 4.25, so it's got a pretty good average rating. So let's see what some people have to say. Like I said, it's hard finding 1 or 2 star reviews, which is, good, but also not so good for my video. Okay, here's one that looks kind of salty. It's got 2 stars. So it says 30 pages of descriptions. Don't get me wrong, at times the writing was beautiful, the world building was great and all, but the plot was so damn slow. The book didn't even start until about 80%, and by that point I was so done I just forced myself to stick it out. This was not worth the hype and I'm sad. Okay, I do agree that the book has a lot of descriptive writing in it, but for me, that was something that I really enjoyed about it. From the beginning, the descriptions of Weep were what drew me in the whole world, and Laszlo, and the library that he lived in. So yeah, it is very descriptive, and a lot of it is world building, but I just think that it was necessary, and it really just created a great atmosphere for the book. And I don't agree that the plot was slow. I feel like the plot moves pretty quickly. We find out about Laszlo and about the lost city that he's been obsessed with, and within the first few chapters, he basically ends up going off with the Tizer cane and going to the city that he wants to be in. So I don't understand how that's a slow plot. And then when he gets to Weep, I think it's the first night that Sarai goes into his dreams, and they start to see each other and start to meet each other. So I just think that's wrong. I think it picks up pretty quickly and new stuff is constantly happening, and I just don't mind that there's lots of plot and description. I do not remember reading this and being oh, this is a lot of description, because I don't like books like that. That's why I've never picked up anything by Tolkien, because I know that there's so much descriptive writing in there, and that's just not my cup of tea usually. So I just don't think that this is actually that bad. A lot of 4 stars, a lot of 5 stars. This is what we like to see. Okay, This 1 star is kind of dumb. It says, please note that I DNF'd this book at 5%, which means I did not finish this book, so stopped reading it at 5%, which how are you going to give up on a book 5% of the way in? Most books don't just start off with like some intriguing plot right away. And if anything, I thought that this book did. I remember this book just hooked me from the very beginning. So it says, sorry, not sorry. I'm not going to force myself to read something I'm not enjoying, which I do agree with. Don't read stuff that you don't enjoy. I have DNF'd a few books this year, so there's nothing wrong with that. But I guess I just don't understand because at like 5% of this book, I was super intrigued. Because the purple prose and info dump that I tried to wade through turned me completely off. I can't say much more than that since I didn't waste my time trying to struggle through this read. Listen, people, books have to have information in it that isn't just dialogue. So I'm not sure I would call that an info dump or just tons of purple prose. Like, we have to set up the world. This is a fantasy series, so we need to learn about this world, or else you're just going to be confused when stuff starts happening. On the off chance this person is watching my video, go back, try it again, because this book is worth it. Okay, so now I'm going to look at some reviews for the second book in the series, Muse of Nightmares, and I think most people enjoyed this book more than they enjoyed the first one, at least what I've seen from some other people's videos, and this one does have a higher average rating of 4.45. Okay, here's a 2-star review. The 1-star reviews are very few and far between, so I don't know if I need to change the title of this video, but I'm not going to. I'm not happy about writing this review. Contrary to popular opinion, I don't actually enjoy writing negative reviews. She doesn't seem to know what to do with these worlds once they're built. She doesn't seem to have any stories to actually tell. It breaks my fantasy lover's heart to say it, but for all their exquisite, positively breathtaking beauty, there's just nothing underneath to breathe life into the words. Child. Anyway, I don't understand what this means. She doesn't know what to do with the worlds once they're built. Well, then what's the whole plot? She introduced such a cool new kind of plot point into this series with this book by talking about how there's these tears in the dimensions. I don't remember how it's described, but basically you can travel back and forth between different worlds, and there's like hundreds of worlds that are all like parallel, and you can go in between them. And so if anything, she took this already cool world that she built in the first book and she made it even cooler and added in this new plot point that just gave a whole new meaning to what happened in the first book. She says here, no one grows or changes. Characters just decide to do things that make sense in terms of how plot works, but never feels like they come from anywhere real. Okay, if you're gonna say characters never change, how are you gonna talk about Minya? So, spoiler alert, Minya spends the entire 2 books hating humans because of what they did to the gods and how they killed all of the god children. But she, at the end of the book, is finally able to let go of all of this hatred in order to save Sarai. She doesn't completely become good again, but she is able to kind of change and grow away from that hatred that she'd been harboring for so long. So how is that no change? Someone explain that to me. That's like the biggest change of the characters in the whole series. Another thing it says is she seems to want to tell very simple stories about young people meeting and falling in love and dealing with mean parents who don't understand them and coming out and figuring out their gender identities. And at least in this book, there is 2 people who fall in love, and I mean, there's romance in most stories, so I don't know how that's exactly crazy. And mean parents who don't understand them, I think has to do with the storyline Cora and Nova. And sure, Cora and Nova's parents sucked, but to me, their sisterly bond was just one of the best parts and most heartbreaking parts of this book. And the fact that they loved each other so much that Nova spent hundreds of years trying to find her sister. And I loved that part of the book. And at the end, it was just extremely heartbreaking, but that is just about this really strong sisterly bond. And I thought that that was a great addition and a very deep character relationship. So I think that the characters are very well developed. Okay, so another 1-star review. It's pretty long, so I'm just gonna look at some different parts of it. So one of this is talking about how they didn't... So here, the person is talking about how one thing they didn't like was the wild variance in maturity. I've previously noted in the first book, but even more here, they jump from adult-like to petulant infants constantly. So they're teenagers or very young adults. So like, what are you expecting? They're not adults and they're not children. Everyone knows that teenagers can go from being very immature to acting like mature adults. Talked about how they can go from being adult enough to being sexually active, but then when they enter a new kitchen, they begin hunting for sugar. Then they gripe about the greed of the dead people because they've ate all the sugar when they were like starving to death. And if that's not just a classic teenager, I don't know what is. Teenagers are dumb, so yeah, they're having sex, but they're also complaining about the fact that they don't have sugar and about how the starving people ate all the sugar and that's a big inconvenience for them. Have you ever met a teenager? That is exactly what teenagers are like. They're dumb and annoying. So yeah, I just think that shows that the teenagers were written well, not that the characters are written unwell. Okay, so that's it for the Strange the Dreamer and Muse of Nightmares. My mind was not changed. I still love those books, and if you haven't read them, read them. Okay, next up, I'm going to be reading reviews for Chain of Iron by Cassandra Clare. So this is the second book in the Last Hour series. So I read this book, I guess like a month or two ago, and I loved it. I gave it 5 stars. I pretty much love any book that Cassandra Clare publishes, so I'm just a huge Shadowhunters fan, and I really, really love the Last Hour series a lot. Let's see what people have to say about this one. Okay, so this person says, I felt a lot of the drama in this book to be very shallow. If these characters would just talk and be honest to one another, everything would be so much cleaner. And that is true. That's very true. But I also feel like that is the case with so many books, is that two people are in love and they just don't tell each other because of certain things and blah, 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 blah. So yeah, if people just sat down and hashed out everything in every single book, you're right, like the drama would probably be resolved really quickly, but that's not what we like to read. We like to read stuff that keeps us on our toes, and we love the longing of two people in love but who don't talk to each other for a long time, and then they have little moments and it's like, ooh. And Cassandra Clare loves to do this. She loves to tease us and drags out all the time. The two main characters can't be together until the very end, but that's what makes it so exciting when they actually do get together, is that we've been waiting for it for so long. Okay, so this one says, Cassie Clare also said that she disliked the idea of Grace and Cordelia fighting over James because women should never do that, but the narrative always implies Grace doesn't compare to Cordelia and the other characters say it. And that bothered me, not gonna lie. Women don't exist to make a man happy, and not a woman like Grace whose life is full of abuse without anyone to protect her. Okay, so I agree. Women don't exist to make men happy, that's for sure. I think the reason they're saying that Grace doesn't compare to Cordelia is because they know Cordelia and they love Cordelia, and everything that they've known about Grace so far is negative. All of James's friends and his sister can tell that this Grace girl has made him extremely unhappy. And plus we know that Grace has been doing this crazy thing, keeping him under her control. So I feel like it's less about Grace like not being good enough, and it's more about the fact that she did do this kind of shitty thing to him, even though she has had this really hard life. And so I want Grace to, you know, eventually have some redemption because I do feel bad for her, but I wouldn't say that it's like pitting Cordelia and Grace against each other, and they're definitely not fighting over James because Grace doesn't want James in that way. And so they're like, hey, why are you worried about that girl when you have Cordelia who's like, oh, you know what I mean? Next up, I'm going to be reading 1-star reviews for Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. So most people love this book. It has 4.27 as its average star rating. I recently read this book and loved it. I made a whole video about this book. If you want to watch that, I will have that linked below. Okay, so this is a 2-star rating, and I got beef with this. It says, while the sisters Bronte were capable of creating characters that even today's readers can identify with, Austen's characters are devoid of any depth whatsoever. They all seem to be flitting through life with one goal in mind, for the men finding a woman who's easy on the eyes, and for the women finding a man who's heavy on the bank. Did you read this book? Because literally Elizabeth does not care about money. The whole premise of the book is that Elizabeth is not going to marry for money. She wants to marry, if at all, for love. She even resigns herself not to marry and say that I'm just gonna be the fun aunt, which I feel that girl. So that's just not true. Same thing with Jane. Jane loved Bingley, but it wasn't for his money. That's the whole reason we have the annoying characters like Mrs. Bennet, who is constantly talking about money, is because she's there to contrast the fact that the two girls, Jane and Elizabeth, don't care about money, and they want to find someone who they love and who will treat them well. So that's just not true. It also says the main goal for the man is to find a woman who's easy on the eyes. And we also see that with Darcy. He is not worried about getting married at all. He probably would spend his whole life being a bachelor if he hadn't met Elizabeth. When he does start to fall in love with her, he does notice that she is beautiful, but it's because he gets attracted to her personality at first. At first, he says that she's not handsome enough to tempt him, so it's not like it was love at first sight when he looked at her. It was after he got to know her and kind of realized that she was cool and a savage that he was like, ooh, this girl's kind of cute, actually. So that's just not true. Darcy, the main man, is not looking through life trying to find a woman who's easy on the eyes. I just wonder if this person has even read this book. Like, I'm not trying to be rude, but actually that doesn't describe any of the characters in this book. So I'm kind of confused. This girl is saying that is the Bingley sisters. It says, good Lord, they took up so much unnecessary space, which, if I can recall, I don't feel like there was tons and tons of space about the Bingley sisters. I feel like they were usually just there and they were making annoying comments, and Caroline especially would just make annoying comments to Darcy, and then Darcy would usually defend Elizabeth in those comments. So I actually kind of appreciated Caroline in that sense, that she was constantly trying to berate Elizabeth to Darcy, and Darcy was like, shut up, like, I don't agree with you, you're dumb. So I would say that they actually, in my opinion, they don't take up too much space. They were annoying and I hated them. So if anything, I would say that that shows that Austen did a great job of making hateable characters. And I don't know if that would kind of knock my review down because they sucked, because like they did suck. But if anything, I think that they helped bring Elizabeth and Darcy closer together. Okay, so that is it for this video. I hope you enjoyed watching this. This was kind of fun to film. It was hard finding 1-star or 2-star reviews for some of these books, which is good to see because most people enjoyed these books as well, which I appreciated. But I also kind of liked reading people's negative opinions and then rebuking them and say, you're wrong, this is why. So if you've read these books and you agree or disagree with anything that these people said or anything that I said, then drop a comment and let me know what you're thinking. Let me know if you liked this video. I can always make another one. I only talked about 4 or 5 books in this video, so I've got tons of other books that I love. So this was kind of fun, and I hope that you enjoyed. If you did, make sure to give it a like and subscribe. Thank you so much to everyone who has subscribed to me so far. I really appreciate it. That's it. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.